My wife cheated on me with our neighbor, then secretly signed over our $350, $0 house and a $200, $0 inheritance to him before disappearing. And now she's suing me for custody and claiming I stole everything. I never thought I'd be the guy writing about how my wife cheated on me with our neighbor and then turned around and tried to screw me over financially. But here I am. The whole thing happened so fast, it's like I blinked and I was drowning in a mess I didn't even see coming. I'll start from the beginning because honestly, I wish I'd seen the signs earlier, but hindsight is 20/20, right? My wife and I had been married for 10 years. We had a nice life, big house, 2 kids, decent jobs. I worked as an accountant, was a real estate agent, so she handled the house and the kids mostly. We weren't perfect, but we were comfortable, and I thought we were happy. That was until about 6 months ago when I started noticing little things that didn't add up. She started working longer hours, claiming she had open houses or client meetings, but I'd find her phone buzzing. In the middle of the night with texts she'd quickly hide or delete. She'd go out with her friends and come back looking flushed, acting secretive. At first, I shrugged it off. Maybe she was just stressed or having a rough time. But then I saw her phone one night when she left it on the nightstand, an email notification from some guy named Jake, a neighbor who moved in about a year ago. The email was from her and it was a flirty message about how much she missed seeing him and how she couldn't wait to see him again. My stomach dropped. I stared at that screen for a second, trying to process what I was seeing. My wife, my partner, was texting another man like that. It felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I didn't confront her right away. I needed to be sure. I started digging. I checked her phone, her social media accounts. I found more messages, secret exchanges, flirtatious photos, plans to meet up. It was all there. The worst part, she was lying every time I asked her about her whereabouts or her phone. She'd say she was at a friend's house or working late, but I knew better now. Had been cheating on me with Jake for months, probably longer. They had been sneaking around, meeting up when she said she was working late, and I was just blind to it. When I finally confronted her, I did it in a quiet moment. I'd gathered enough evidence, screenshots, messages, even a few photos she'd sent Jake of herself in bed. I showed her everything. Her reaction was a mix of anger, denial, and outright lies. She told me she was just having fun, that it didn't mean anything, and that Jake was just a harmless neighbor. She said I was overreacting, that I was paranoid. And then she threw in the classic line, "You're just jealous because I still look good and I'm not dead inside like you." That was the moment I realized how much of a bitch she had become, blaming me, gaslighting me, trying to make me feel like I was the crazy one. The emotional impact hit me hard. I felt betrayed, humiliated, stupid for not noticing sooner. I loved her, or at least I thought I did. Now I wasn't sure what I was holding onto. The anger bubbled up. How could she do this to me, to our family, to our kids? I was furious, but at the same time deeply hurt. I kept asking myself how she could lie so easily, how she could cheat and then try to make me the bad guy. That night I couldn't sleep. I replayed everything in my head, every sign I missed, every lie she told, every time I trusted her and she betrayed me. It was like my whole world was collapsing. I knew I had to decide what to do next, but honestly, I was just overwhelmed. I had no idea how to pick up the pieces of a marriage that felt like it was already broken, especially after she started talking about lawyers, custody battles, and how I was the one who was trying to steal everything from her. That's when I realized this wasn't just about cheating anymore. It was about the war she was trying to start, and I had to be ready for that fight. After I confronted, things didn't just settle down. Instead, they spiraled into chaos faster than I could process. She played the victim at first, crying, saying she was just confused, that Jake was just some guy she ran into at the grocery store and that she never meant for it to go this far. Yeah, right. She lied about everything. I found out she'd been secretly signing over our house, our family's home, the one we'd built together, to Jake. Not just that, she also transferred a $200, $0 inheritance from my grandmother's estate into his account. It was like she was trying to erase everything we had, and I felt sick just thinking about what she'd done behind my back. I knew I had to get legal advice. I called a lawyer the next day, and the guy told me had already filed for custody of the kids. That was a punch to the gut. She was trying to turn the kids against me, probably to make it easier to get full custody and keep the house. Meanwhile, she kept insisting she was the victim, that I was trying to control her, that I was stalking her because I found her cheating. She spun a web of lies about how I was abusive, how I'd stolen money from her, and how she was just trying to protect herself from me. I couldn't believe the audacity. She had actually signed over the house, a huge chunk of our assets, and then had the nerve to accuse me of theft. I had the receipts, the bank statements, the transfer records. I was furious. But what really got to me was how she was trying to paint herself as the innocent party. She told our lawyer she'd been forced into signing everything over because I was controlling and violent, which was a flat-out lie. I've never laid a hand on her, never even raised my voice. But the way she was spinning it, you'd think I was the villain. Over the next few weeks, she kept up the act, playing the perfect victim, acting like she was the one wronged. Meanwhile, I was doing my best to gather evidence, trying to protect myself legally. I found out she'd been meeting Jake at a cheap motel, not just for sex, but to draw up the paperwork. She'd hired a lawyer herself and was planning to fight me over custody and the house. It was like she was orchestrating her own betrayal, then turning around to accuse me of stealing everything. I felt like I was living in some nightmare I couldn't wake up from. The emotional toll was brutal. I was angry, hurt, and confused. I loved my kids, but I knew was trying to turn them against me. She kept calling me abusive, controlling, and claiming I was stalking her. That was her way of trying to justify her actions and make me look like the bad guy. Honestly, I felt betrayed not just by her infidelity, but by how far she was willing to go to destroy what little stability we had left. I kept asking myself how she could do this to us, to the kids, and I was starting to lose hope that I'd ever get any of my life back. All I had was the evidence and a lawyer telling me to prepare for a long fight. I knew I had to stay strong, but inside I was crumbling. The more I dug into what had done, the more I realized how deep her betrayal went. She'd not only cheated on me with Jake, but she had also managed to legally transfer our home and a huge chunk of my inheritance without my knowledge. I kept asking myself, how did she pull this off? How could she be so manipulative? I found out she'd been secretly working with a lawyer, one she'd hired behind my back, who helped her draft and sign over everything. She told the lawyer she was scared of me, that I was abusive, and that she needed to protect herself and the kids. It was all a lie, but she knew how to play the victim perfectly. Her lies kept piling up. She claimed she'd been forced into signing the house over because I was violent, which was the most laughable thing I'd ever heard. I never laid a finger on her. The truth was, she saw an opportunity to cut me out entirely, to start fresh with Jake and whatever new life she was planning. She even had the nerve to accuse me of stealing from her, saying I'd taken money from the accounts. I had all the bank statements, all the transaction records. I knew I was clean, but her accusations made me feel like I was losing my mind. Meanwhile, she was out there, living her new life with Jake, while I was stuck in this nightmare. The house was now in Jake's name legally, and she had transferred the inheritance into his account, money I had been saving for the kids' college, for our future, all gone. She signed everything over in a rush, probably thinking I wouldn't notice, or maybe she just wanted to erase the last 10 years of our marriage. I couldn't believe how cold and calculating she'd become. I remember the day I finally got a hold of the transfer records. Seeing the signatures, the dates, everything was like a punch to the stomach. I couldn't sleep for nights after that. I kept replaying everything, trying to understand how could do this to us, to me, to the kids. She kept telling people I was the one trying to steal from her, trying to control her, but the truth was, she was the one stealing from us all along. She was the one lying, cheating, and now trying to spin it all as if I was the bad guy. It was around this point I realized I had to fight back legally if I wanted to even stand a chance of getting some of what was ours. I hired my own lawyer, and from that moment everything changed. I started putting together a case, not just for custody, but to undo what she'd done illegally. I knew she was going to fight me tooth and nail. She'd already hired her lawyer, and I could tell she was planning to drag this out as long as she could. The worst part, she kept trying to make me look like the villain in front of the kids, painting me as someone who was abusive and controlling. That was her way of winning the battle for their hearts, and I knew I had to be smarter. Looking back now, I see how she played me, how she used our love and trust against me. But I also see my own mistakes, ignoring the warning signs, trusting her too much, thinking she was the woman I married. I still feel a mix of rage and sadness, but I'm starting to understand I can't change what she did. All I can do is fight for what's right, for my kids' future, and try to rebuild what she tried to destroy. The legal fight is just beginning, and I know it's going to be a long, exhausting road. But I refuse to let her win, not after everything she's done. The legal battle only intensified after I hired my lawyer and started filing paperwork. Of course, responded with her own lawyer and a barrage of false accusations. She claimed I was abusive, that I'd stolen money from her, and that I was trying to keep the kids from her out of some twisted control issue. She even went as far as to say I was violent, which is a complete lie. I stayed calm through it all, but inside I was boiling. Every day I was bombarded with her lies and manipulations, trying to turn everyone, including the kids, against me. One of the most shocking moments came when I found out she'd been secretly renting a place with Jake, planning to leave town with the kids. She kept insisting she was just going on a vacation, but I knew better. I had a friend who was a private investigator, and he confirmed she was trying to set up a new life with Jake, far away from the mess she'd created. She wanted to run, take the kids, and start fresh somewhere she could be with her lover without any legal or moral consequences. It made me feel sick. All those years I thought we were building a life together, but it was all just a lie. Meanwhile, she kept accusing me of being the bad guy. She told the courts I was controlling, abusive, and that I'd stolen everything from her. I had the evidence on my side: bank statements, transfer records, messages, but it didn't seem to matter much to her. She was good at spinning stories, at twisting facts to fit her narrative. She even hired a lawyer who specialized in custody cases, and I could see she was trying to manipulate the system to get full custody of the kids and keep the house. She wanted to erase me entirely, I think. What hurt the most was the way she was trying to turn my own children against me. She told them I was dangerous, that I was trying to take everything from her, and that I was not a good dad. That's when I knew she was willing to do anything, no matter how low, to win. The kids are everything to me, and seeing her try to poison their minds was like a knife in my heart. I had to be careful, stay composed, and focus on what mattered, proving my innocence and fighting for my rights as their father. Throughout all this chaos, I felt of emotions: anger, sadness, frustration, helplessness. I'd loved for so long, but now I saw her for what she truly was: a manipulative, selfish woman who'd do anything for her own gain. Still, I refused to give up. I kept pushing forward, gathering evidence, talking to my lawyer, and trying to stay strong for my kids. I knew this wasn't over yet, and I could see she was planning her next move. The house, the inheritance, the kids, everything was on the line, and I had to fight tooth and nail just to keep what was ours. I remember sitting in my lawyer's office one day, looking at the documents and realizing how far I'd come from the naive guy who thought marriage was forever. Now I was fighting to save what little I still had left. I knew wasn't going to go down without a fight. She'd already proven she was capable of lying, cheating, and manipulating her way out of any situation. But I also knew I couldn't let her win. I had to be prepared for the storm ahead, because this was only the beginning of a very long war. As the legal proceedings dragged on, tactics only got dirtier. She filed multiple motions, claiming I was unfit to see the kids, accusing me of everything from financial misconduct to emotional abuse. Every time I thought I was making progress, she'd come back with some new lie or false allegation. She even hired her own private investigator, probably hoping to catch me slipping up or to use some evidence against me. It was relentless. I felt like I was fighting a ghost. She kept changing the rules, twisting the facts, and trying to paint me as the villain in our story. The worst part was how she kept trying to manipulate the court system. She tell her lawyer one thing, then contradict herself in court. She claimed I was stalking her, that I was possessive, even though I had never once raised my voice or laid a hand on her. I had the messages and recordings to prove her lies, but I knew courts can be tricky, especially when someone is good at emotional manipulation. Still, I stayed firm, presenting all the evidence I had of her illegal transfers, her affair with Jake, and her attempts to hide assets. Meanwhile, she was actively trying to turn the kids against me. She'd tell them I was dangerous, that I was trying to steal everything, and that she was the only one who loved them. I could see the damage she was doing, and it broke my heart. I tried to spend as much time with the kids as possible, showing them I was still their dad, still there for them. But I knew was planting doubts in their minds, and I feared she'd succeed. I remember the day she told the judge that I was unstable, just to try and get full custody. That was the moment I realized how far she was willing to go, and it made me even more determined to fight for my rights. Throughout all of this, I felt a mix of anger and helplessness. I was angry at her for cheating, for stealing, for lying. I was helpless because I couldn't do anything about her manipulations, her lies, or the way she twisted the truth in court. I kept asking myself how someone I loved could turn into this person, so selfish, so ruthless. But I also knew I couldn't let her win. I had to stay strong, keep fighting, and do whatever was necessary to protect my kids and my own reputation. My lawyer told me I was in for a long haul, had a lot of resources, and she was using every trick in the book to wear me down. She wanted the house, the inheritance, and full custody. She was willing to lie, cheat, and manipulate her way to get it. I knew I had to be prepared for a fight that might last months or even years. But deep down, I also knew that I wasn't going down without a fight. I'd lost a lot already: my trust, my sense of security, my marriage. But I still had my integrity, and I was determined to hold on to that. Looking back, I realize how much I learned about people's true colors during this nightmare. Betrayal showed me that sometimes, the people you trust the most can turn out to be the ones who hurt you the deepest. But it also taught me that even in the darkest moments, you have to keep fighting for what's right, because giving up isn't an option. I don't know how this will end, but I do know I won't stop until I've done everything I can to protect what's mine. After everything, I finally reached a point where I had to make some tough decisions. The court battles, the lies, the betrayals, they had worn me down, but I refused to give her the satisfaction of seeing me broken. I realized that holding onto the past, trying to fix what was clearly beyond repair, was only dragging me further into despair. So I decided to focus on myself and my kids. I filed for full custody, not just to keep her away from them, but to protect them from her manipulations and the chaos she created. I knew she'd do everything she could to fight me, but I also knew I had the truth on my side. The final hearings were brutal. Came in with her lawyer trying to paint me as the villain, just like she'd always done. She lied, twisted facts, and played the victim to garner sympathy from the judge. But I came prepared, every piece of evidence, every message, every financial transfer, all laid out clearly. I could see her faltering when confronted with her own lies. The judge listened carefully, asked tough questions, and in the end, I think they saw through her facade. When the verdict finally came, I was overwhelmed. The court awarded me primary custody of the kids, ordered her to return the house and the inheritance, and restricted her access until she proved she could be a responsible parent. It wasn't just a win for me, it was a victory for truth and integrity. I felt a wave of relief wash over me, knowing I'd fought for my family, and the truth was furious. She tried to appeal, but the evidence was too overwhelming. Her lies crumbled under scrutiny, and her reputation took a serious hit. She disappeared from our lives for a while, trying to regroup and plan her next move, but I stayed focused on rebuilding my life. I learned a lot through this ordeal about trust, betrayal, and resilience. I learned that sometimes, the people closest to you can hurt you the most, but you have to stand strong and fight for what's right. Now, I'm rebuilding what I lost, slowly but surely. The house is back in my name, and I've started therapy to deal with the emotional scars. The kids are doing better and I've become more cautious about who I trust. The betrayal hurt deeply, but it also made me realize my own strength. If there's anything I want anyone reading this to take away, it's this. No matter how dark things seem, don't give up. Keep fighting for your truth, protect your loved ones, and never let someone's lies define you. Trust is fragile, but your integrity is your greatest armor. I may have lost a lot, but I gained clarity, resilience, and a renewed sense of purpose. And for that, I am thankful.